6-month-old baby falls asleep. What happened next with the German Shepherd puppy left the parents astonished. It began on a quiet afternoon in the slow, sleepy suburbs of Seattle. The neighborhood was hushed, the kind of silence that comes when the world outside is busy but a home is holding its breath. Through the blinds, the late sunlight spilled in, painting the walls in soft amber streaks. The golden beams stretched across the modest little townhouse of the Hart family, catching the dust in the air and laying down long shadows on the wooden floor. From the outside, it looked like any ordinary day. But inside, the silence carried a weight, a heavy, tired stillness that only parents of a fragile child could truly understand. In his crib, little Noah was asleep. He was just 6 months old, but already his short life had been filled with more battles than most people ever face. His small chest lifted and sank in a gentle rhythm. His lips parted slightly as he breathed. His hands, tiny and curled, rested softly against his blanket. Yet from the waist down, he did not move at all. Born with a rare neurological condition, Noah had been paralyzed from the hips since birth. His body carried the burden of a sickness. He could not fight, and his parents carried the invisible weight of fear. Emily and Daniel Hart had built their days around him. Emily, who had once moved swiftly through hospital corridors as an ER nurse, now poured every bit of her energy into being Noah's full-time caregiver. Daniel, a quiet and steady man, worked from home, his laptop always open, balancing deadlines and video calls while keeping one eye fixed on the baby monitor. Their lives had become an endless circle of schedules, feeding times, medication charts, therapy visits, doctor appointments. It wasn't really living anymore. It was surviving. That afternoon began like so many others. Quiet, uneventful, almost dull. Emily leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping cold coffee she hadn't had. Time to reheat. Daniel sat upstairs with his headset on, typing lines of code, nodding along to a client he barely heard. The house was wrapped in its usual rhythm, steady, predictable. But beneath that calm, something unseen was stirring. There were no sudden bangs, no sharp cries, no warning at all. But change was on its way. None of them, neither Emily nor Daniel nor their fragile baby boy, could possibly know that the hours ahead would test their strength in ways they weren't prepared for. Only Max seemed to sense it. Max wasn't just any dog. He was a young German shepherd with sharp amber eyes and a spirit that always felt a little too aware. Weeks earlier, Emily had found him one frosty November morning, shivering in the backyard behind their old shed. He had been a pitiful sight, mud, caked in his tangled fur, bones showing under his skin, eyes filled with both fear and a strange hope. Despite her exhaustion, despite everything she already carried, Emily hadn't been able to turn him away. She had wrapped him in a worn blanket, pressed his trembling body to her chest, and whispered, "You're safe now." They searched for an owner, posted signs, checked shelters. No one ever came, and so Max stayed. Day by day, he slipped into their lives, not as a guest, but as family. From the beginning, he was different. He didn't only follow commands, he seemed to listen. He didn't only play, he seemed to notice, especially with Noah. Max often curled up by the crib, pressing his head close enough to feel the baby's soft breath on his nose. When Noah whimpered, Max would whine, staring at the door until someone came. At first, Emily thought it was instinct. But the longer she watched, the more she realized it wasn't only instinct. It was intention. Daniel had joked once, "I swear, Max sees things we don't." He laughed as he said it, but his eyes lingered on the dog in a way that said part of him truly believed it, and maybe he was right. Max's gaze was always alert, sharp, scanning the room with the focus of a silent guardian. When visitors came, he stayed close. When Noah stirred in the night, Max stirred too. It was as though he had chosen Noah as his charge, guarding him in ways the parents themselves could not. And that afternoon, while sunlight stretched across the floor and the baby slept soundly, Max kept watch. He didn't look fearful. He didn't look restless. He looked ready, as if some quiet part of him already knew the world was about to change. Emily had lost track of time. Days blurred together now, counted not in dates, but in checkups and milestones. Mondays and Thursdays were physical therapy. Fridays, every other week, neurology visits. In between were the endless cycles of feeding, medicines, and charts taped to the fridge. Sometimes at night, when Noah finally rested, she sat in the hallway outside his door, her back against the wall, staring at nothing, wondering if love alone was enough to keep her baby alive. Daniel worked close by, always there, yet sometimes feeling far away. His hours blurred into meetings and coding, always tied to the glow of a laptop screen. He worked to provide, to protect, to give their boy every chance. Yet both of them had stopped talking much about tomorrow. Tomorrow was too heavy. They focused only on now, this moment, this hour, this breath. One night, as Emily brushed the hair back from Noah's forehead, she whispered, "I don't know if we're strong enough for this." Daniel, half asleep on the couch, murmured back, "We don't have to be strong. We just have to keep going." Neither of them knew that the strength they were searching for was already inside their home. It had 4 legs, amber eyes, and was listening from just outside the room. That night began like any other. Emily had fed Noah and laid him gently in his crib. He had drifted off almost instantly, his tiny fingers clutching the edge of his blanket. The nightlight cast a warm glow across the nursery walls, wrapping everything in a calm amber haze. Emily sank into the couch, exhaustion swallowing her whole. Daniel had already fallen asleep with a book on his chest, glasses slipping down his face. The house was silent, steady, safe. But Max was restless. He paced outside Noah's room, his ears twitching at every sound, nose working the air as if it carried a message only he could smell. His tail lowered, muscles tense, his paws shifting as he circled the crib. Suddenly he froze, tilted his head, and let out a low, uneasy whimper. Then came the sharp bark that shattered the stillness like breaking glass, and in that moment, everything began to change. When they walked through the front door, Max was waiting. He barked once, loud, sharp, then ran in circles, his tail wagging. So fast it looked like a blur. He tried to peer into the blanket as if to confirm Noah was really there. "He knows," Daniel said, watching in disbelief. "It's like he's been waiting for this exact moment." Emily knelt down and let Max sniff Noah gently. The dog licked the baby's hand once, then quietly laid down beside the crib, his chosen post, resuming his silent watch. From that day forward, Max rarely left Noah's side, and what began as protection soon became something more. Nearly 2 months had passed since that terrifying night. Life at home had settled into a fragile routine. Noah was slowly regaining his strength. Emily spent hours each day following the physical therapist's instructions, gentle stretches, passive movements, soft massage down his legs. She had no expectations. The doctors had been clear. The paralysis was permanent. But still, she tried. It was all she could do. One rainy afternoon, she laid a soft blanket on the living room floor and placed Noah gently on his back. Max curled up beside them as he always did, his eyes following every movement, always alert, always present. Emily reached for Noah's legs and began the usual motions, bending, holding, releasing. Her hands were practiced now, steady. She had learned not to hope for change. Just being close to her son was enough. But then something happened. Max stood up and trotted across the room to his toy basket. He picked out a small rubber ball, one of Noah's favorites, and patted back over. Carefully, he set it down right beside the baby. Emily smiled at the gesture. "You're such a good boy," she whispered to Max. Then she saw it. Nose, right foot moved. Just a flicker, a twitch so small she wasn't even sure it had happened. Emily froze. Her hands, mid-motion, stopped in the air. Her eyes locked on his leg, not daring to blink. For a second, everything around her, the sound of rain tapping on the window, the creak of the old floor, even her own breath, vanished into silence. Did I just imagine that? She thought. Her heart was suddenly pounding loud in her ears. She stared at his tiny foot, willing it to move again. And then there it was, another faint twitch. Subtle, delicate, but real. Her stomach turned, her skin prickled. It felt like the ground beneath her had shifted. Tears welled in her eyes as she gasped, barely able to form words. "Daniel," she called out, her voice high and shaking. "Daniel, come here now." Heavy footsteps echoed from the hallway. Daniel burst into the room, alarm etched on his face. "What happened? Is he okay?" Emily turned to him, her eyes filled with disbelief, with fear, with fragile hope. "It's his leg," she whispered, her voice breaking. I think he just moved it." Daniel dropped to his knees beside them. "What do you mean?" His gaze fell to Noah's legs. "Are you sure?" "I don't know," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "I just watch." And then, as if Noah knew they were watching, his right foot gave another soft jerk. It wasn't strong, it wasn't controlled, but it was there. Daniel's hand flew to his mouth, his other arm wrapped instinctively around Emily's shoulder. Neither of them spoke. They simply stared, hearts racing, eyes wide as the miracle unfolded before them, quiet, unannounced, but powerful. In that moment, something shifted inside both of them. The following weeks were a blur of disbelief and cautious optimism. Emily and Daniel took Noah to every specialist they could find. Neurologists ran scans, performed reflex tests, and combed through his medical history again and again. One movement might have been a fluke, but two, then three, then daily signs of increasing control that demanded explanation. Dr. Ramirez, a seasoned pediatric neurologist, stared at the test results in silence for several minutes before finally speaking. "It's extremely rare," she said, choosing her words carefully. "There are a handful of cases where severe infections trigger what we call a neurological reboot. It's as if the body under extreme stress rewires itself. But this is remarkable." Emily gripped Daniel's hand, "so he might walk someday." Dr. Ramirez hesitated. "It's too early to say. Butte's doing something no one expected. Athome." The transformation was subtle, but steady. Noah began reacting to stimulation in his lower limbs. Then came intentional movements. Slow, shaky, but determined. Emily increased his physical therapy time. Daniel built makeshift equipment out of foam blocks and rubber bands. Every milestone, no matter how small, was celebrated like a miracle. And through it all, Max was there. He wasn't just a companion anymore. He became part of the therapy itself. He brought toys to Noah, dropped them in his lap, nudged them closer when they rolled away. He waited patiently, eyes fixed, tail wagging every time Noah tried to reach out. If Noah cried in frustration, Max would lay his head beside him, offering silent comfort. It wasn't training, it was something deeper. Max seemed to know what Noah needed even before anyone else did, and in his quiet, loyal way, he pushed the little boy forward, step by precious step. 6 months after that first twitch, Noah began to crawl. It was slow and awkward at first, his arms doing most of the work while his legs dragged behind. But it was movement. It was determination. And more than anything, it was hope. Emily cried the first time she saw him push himself across the floor toward Max, who waited with his favorite stuffed toy clutched gently between his teeth. Daniel caught it on video. Noah's determined eyes, Max's patient encouragement, and the moment their hands and paws met. It became a symbol in their home, proof that miracles don't always come in flashes of lightning. Sometimes they come on four legs. Max never left his side. As Noah grew stronger, so did their bond. When he began pulling himself to stand with support, Max stood right beside him. When he took his first steps, barely balanced, wide-eyed, reaching for something, Max was there, matching his pace with quiet devotion. 3 years later, on a golden summer afternoon, the Hart family sat on a bench at the neighborhood park. Daniel's arm was around Emily, and her eyes were fixed on the little boy running across the grass. Noah, now 4 years old, was laughing as he chased a red ball, his steps still wobbly but full of purpose. Right beside him, Max ran like a shadow, never too fast, always in step, ever watchful. "Sometimes I still can't believe it," Emily whispered. "They said he'd never walk." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "I know, but they didn't know him, and they didn't know Max." They watched as Noah threw his arms around the dog's neck, burying his face in the thick fur. "Maybe," Daniel said softly, "this isn't just a miracle. Maybe it's the power of love, the kind that never gives up." And in that quiet moment, bathed in the warm light of the setting sun, it was hard to argue with.